Hey guys, welcome back to another Artdoll video. So this one, another big cat. Seem to can't get enough of making the big cats. But I'm rather enjoying making the big cats, so I guess I will stick to doing that. But yeah, new doll up for grabs. It is the cougar, puma, mountain lion. It's a snarling face version. Maybe in the future, if someone wants to commission, I could do a regular face, but I wanted to do a little bit of a different pose for this one, so it's not movable this time, but I just wanted to do, yeah, just a bit of a different looking one. So polymer clay head, polymer clay feet, ball and socket armature, so it's posable. Inside it's faux fur, which I have airbrushed, and that's how I got like this coat. It's a very different sort of coat. I did it in a three layer color, so I started off with a yellow, orange, and then finished it off with a brown, and yeah, so that is a better look at the cougar. Hopefully it is up in my shop as we speak. And yeah, payment plans are welcome, so just shoot me a message if you want to know how they work. If you want to commission me for any other big cats that I haven't done yet, then just shoot me a message as well. I'm definitely open to doing those. So yeah, if you want to see how I made the cougar, then just keep watching. Okay, so I'm starting off by sculpting the inner part of the mouth, and I originally was going to do a open and close movable jaw for this one, but I decided just to do an open jaw once I started sculpting everything. So I'm using some Super Sculpey for the gum colour, and that's what it's kind of like a beigey translucent colour. And then I'm going to be sculpting the teeth out of some translucent Sculpey. It's a really good Sculpey to use for things like teeth and nails. And then I basically pre-bake these before I move on to any other part, just so they're nice and solid and they don't move around when I'm sculpting it. And I start off with doing the canines first, and then I do the little teeth in between. So I roll out 2 balls of clay roughly the same size, so they have the same shape and the same length. Add them on, make a little well with a ball tool, and then add them on. Same deal with the smaller teeth, add a little well, and then I'm going to be adding them on. Sometimes I do it as a single strip and add the details in. Sometimes I do it this way by pinching off little bits of clay and adding the teeth separately. And for the tongue, I've just rolled out a flat bead of clay. It's oversized as it is, but I'll trim it once I finish all the detailing. For the little, I forgot what they're called, but the little details on the tongue, I'm just using a needle tool and sort of flicking up, so it creates like a little, I guess like a little pointy bit. And I'll do that the whole way across the tongue, just for that little cat detail. So then I place the tongue on the lower jaw that I sculpted before, and I'll give that a quick bake, and once I put it all together I'll give that a bit of a trim. And I'm just measuring out the next part, which is the top jaw, just making sure it's the right size and that it sits properly. And the same sort of process, I create the little wells with my ball tool, and then create the little wells with the little ones as well, and roll out the bits of clay that I need. And I'm doing the little teeth first, and then I'll add the canines last. And just making sure it fits together nicely. I'm going to put it together while I'm baking it so it doesn't move around, and I know that it's going to sit properly, because I was going to do the movable jaw and I wanted it to close properly, but I will bake it together, and then I'll pull it apart once it's been baked. So the next part is I'm going to be sculpting the head. So I use an aluminium foil core for basically a skull, and then I cover that with using Sculpey Original for this one, so it's the white coloured Sculpey. It's a little bit softer to work with. I like working with soft clays because I'm kind of a fast sculptor. I like to push things around, so you need that sort of softer clay. And I'm just covering the ball with a layer of it and making sure I've got a really rough shape of the head. Then I can start measuring where I want the jaw to sit. It always looks a bit funny, and it sort of never looks like it's going to work properly, but once you start sculpting it all and refining the process a bit better, it starts coming together. So you just basically got to trust the process. So I've put the top part of the jaw onto the head, and I'm going to be sculpting the muzzle first. So I've just rolled out 2 balls of clay and sort of shaped them into, I guess, a muzzle sort of shape, and then blending it into the head. For the nose, I'm going to be using that same Super Sculpey beige coloured one, and because this cougar is going to be kind of like a snarling cougar, the muzzle has to be a little bit shorter than just a regular cougar with a regular expression. So basically the nose is a little bit scrunched up and pushed back, so it's always good to keep that in mind when you're sculpting things with an expression, how things change. Once that little bit of clay has been put on, I can start sculpting out the nostrils. So I use my ball tool and just sculpt little nostrils out and sort of blend it into the rest of the clay. Then I can add the muzzle, top of the nose area. So I'm just going to bulk that out a little bit once I put that nose on, and I can blend that into the rest of the head. For the eyes, I've just created a little, basically an eye well with some bits of clay, and I'm going to be placing the cabochons on top of them. Just basically props up the eye a little bit more, so it's not so pushed back, and just making sure that they're sitting symmetrically and they're not, pointing in an odd direction, and that the pupils are sitting in the same spot as well. Once I'm happy with that, I can start adding the eyelids. So I just roll out a bit of clay and basically roll it on top of the place it on top of the cabochons, and you can create different expressions with where you're going to sit the clay. So I wanted this one to have sort of an angry expression, so I put the clay quite low onto the eye, sort of covering the pupil a little bit. Once I'm happy with the way that's sitting, I can start adding the brow. So I've rolled out a bigger piece of clay into a snake shape and just placing it on top, just sort of blending it in and making a brow structure across the head. And then I can start adding a little bit of fill to the under eye, and that's sort of, if you look at a cat's face, they have like a little bit of a fat deposit under the eye, so just adding that little structure here and blending it into the head. I'm just going to build up the sides and the top of the head, just to build up the structure a little bit more. Then I can start working on the lower part of the jaw. So the bits that I've pre-baked, I'm going to start adding a little bit of Sculpting Original to just build up that jawline. And then I'm going to attach it to the other side of the head. And like I said before, I was going to do it a movable jaw, but it wasn't really working out how I wanted it to. The lower part wasn't really lining up how I wanted it to, and I ended up just making it a solid piece because the face is like a pulled in snarl look, and yeah, the teeth weren't really lining up properly, so I just went for a solid piece. So for the little lip line, I've just rolled out a worm piece of clay, and I am just placing it on top and blending it into the sides just for that little lip section. And then once I add the faux fur onto this, I'm going to sort of blend it into the edge of this one, so it's kind of like a seamless look. And so for the snarling details on top of the muzzle, I'm going to do little bits of clay rolled out into a snake and just blending them in with my silicone tool. I'll probably end up losing this detail once I apply the faux fur on, but I sort of can replicate it a little bit with some shadowing. But usually you sort of lose the tiny little details like this. And then I just sort of wanted to build up the brow line a little bit, make it a little bit more refined before I add the ears on. For the ears, I've rolled out 2 pieces of clay, roughly the same size, and then I can sort of pinch them out into a rough ear shape, give them a trim, and then add them to the ears. So for these ears, I'm doing sort of a bent back ear, as opposed to like a wide open front facing ear, just because it is snarling and I wanted to give it that bit more of a angry look. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of fur detailings around the thinner areas. So usually around the eyes, the nose, the mouth area, and the muzzle bit, just so I know where the fur direction goes. And it sort of helps me finish off the sculpture a little bit, and blend the fur in a little bit better as well. So here's the finished piece. I'm going to go bake it now and I can start working on the paws. So I sculpt the paws, all 4 paws for this one, and basically what I do is roll out 4 bits of clay roughly the same size, shape them into a paw, paw shape, and then I end up rolling out more balls of clay for the toes, all the same size, and then I can add them, just stretch them out and add them onto that larger piece of clay. The 2 smaller ones on the side are obviously smaller bits of clay, so they're not too big, because if you look at cat paws, the toes on the sides are quite smaller and sort of pinched in a little bit, as opposed to the front ones. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And then just refining those toe areas a little bit, and I can start working on the toe beans. So again, I've just rolled out some bits of clay and just sculpting a rough little toe bean shape, like a paw pad, the large one. And then the same with the toe paw pads, just roll out a little bit of ball of clay, squish it down and shape it into a toe bean shape. Okay, once everything has been baked, I can start painting up all of the pieces. So I've added an armature to all of the pieces, including the feet and the head. I'm using a 1/4 scale armature for this one, but I'll talk about the armature a little bit more in a minute. I'm using some water-based acrylic paint just to paint the areas that are going to be shown, so that just need to be black basically. So around the eyes, the nose, the mouth, especially that lip line needs to be a black lip line. So I'm just going to go ahead and paint all of that. And same for the paw pads, just going in and painting them black using that water-based acrylic paint. So for the armature, like I said before, I'm using a 1/4 scale armature and I'm just popping all the sockets together using the pliers. I am fresh out of these pliers. I only have the larger size, which I think is a 3/4 size left. But they work really well to pop the sockets on. I do plan on ordering some soon. I might even take some pre-orders for them as well. Eventually, soon. I'll just have to do a little bit of an inventory restock. So once I've made the armature using the plastic ball and socket armature, I'm just covering it with a just a little bit of pipe cleaner, just so when I needle felt the body, the felt has something to stick to, or the polyfill is what I use. It has something to stick to, so it doesn't sort of slip around on that plastic armature. And I'm just using a single needle felting needle just to basically needle felt a muscle tone into the body. And then I'm going to be covering it with some faux fur. So this part always takes a little bit of time to do. I don't use alpaca fiber for this one, just because it's a waste of money, and this really works a lot. Pretty much the same, it just doesn't hold the detail as a needle felting fiber, but because I'm just making a basic rough muscle tone and covering it with faux fur, the polyfill works really great for this method. So I start off by doing the torso piece. So I'm cutting some leg holes into the sides, I'm pinning it together, and then I'm going to go and sew up that torso piece using a ladder stitch and some good quality thread. And I can move on to doing the legs, the neck and the tail area after that. So I basically cut out some rough shapes of the legs and pin them together, give them a trim and sew them up using a ladder stitch as well. Once everything has been sewn up, I can start gluing everything together. So I use a tacky fabric glue that works really well for gluing fabrics to polymer clays or resins. And I usually leave it at least for a couple of hours to dry, but usually overnight, so it's nice and adhered. Once that's done, I can apply some faux fur to the head and then give it a good all over trim because that fur definitely needs to be shortened. And then I'm going to be adding the colour using an airbrush. So I did the colour in 3 different parts. So I started off with the lightest first and went to a medium colour and basically did a whole overlay, a spray of these colours, blended it in a bit better, and then went in with the darker colour to add any of those detailings like muscle tones and shadows and stuff like that. So that's pretty much it. This guy is available in my shop at creaturesandthat.com. I do offer payment plans for all my dolls, so just shoot me a message if you want to know how they work. I have a couple in there looking for homes. If you want a little bit more, you can check me out on Patreon. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook and TikTok at creaturesandthat, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.